See, this GIF or GIF has so much
Mm.
meaning,
Mm-hmm.
not just
Mm-hmm.
with Dynasty,
Mm-hmm.
just life in general.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Okay, and let's do this thing in three, two, one. This is the most important show of the year if you play in Dynasty Leagues because it is our snorkel, scuba, submarine show. Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom going through the prospects that you need to know about. This is like the preseason watch list in reverse, Bloom. It's an
Mm-hmm.
exercise that we've
Mm-hmm.
done for over 10 years. It's one of my favorite shows of the year. Usually it's the first show we do. He's a little behind, but hey, we're here now. We're going to talk about it, but it's always good and fun to go through this exercise, Bloom.
It is. It's getting to be springtime. I know that the deep freeze. Hey, everyone out there. Hope you, for those of you listening, had a rough time last week. Our thoughts, speaking of prayers, go out. But it's springtime. It's time to plant seeds, right? And playing Dynasty Fantasy Football is fun because you can actually show everybody I was the first one to see something in this player and see that they might develop into something. And see, so it always makes me think of Fast Willie Parker. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when the Steelers signed him as an undrafted free agent, nobody cared. When even he had a big game in Week 17 when the Steelers, who were already in the playoffs, beat Buffalo in a meaningful game for Buffalo, nobody cared. But then pretty soon, a lot of people. He was on the cover of the Football Guys magazine. You interviewed
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
So this one's for Fast Willie.
I think I have one of those magazines like right down there on my bookshelf. So maybe I'll break that out in a little show and tell. But we're going to go through snorkel, scuba, submarine, bloom. And just for the new listeners or people that haven't heard,
Yeah,
describe to them
sure.
why I think you came up with this. Is like, let's talk about the varying levels.
Yeah, and I love alliteration. And I'm too much of a wimp to actually learn how to scuba, but I can snorkel. And submarine would be fun. Maybe that's the next thing that we'll all get as our own submarine, even though we didn't get jetpacks yet. So depending on the level of league that you play in, the waiver wire is going to feature different players, and we try to wide net it like we do during the season. So some of the snorkel guys are probably taken in your league, but there are some leagues out there with pretty short benches. And then if you're like me and you're like 16 team leagues with 53 man rosters and full IDP lineups, well, you're looking deep, and that's why we got to get the submarine out.
Yeah, yeah. Get the submarine out and get ready to go. By the way, Bloom, here it is.
Yeah.
2007 strategy guide for
Mm-hmm.
football guys. This was, I believe, our third magazine, right?
Yeah.
I believe so. Tiki Barber, Reggie Bush,
Mm-hmm.
Willie Parker.
Mm-hmm.
Those are our three. So I got a couple of copies of this around still. So there you go. Yeah, 2007 seems like yesterday, but it wasn't.
No.
Let's talk about these guys who hopefully are playing for years and years and years. And we're going to have some overlap when we do this, just for the listening audience out there. Like, we're going to talk about snorkels, but my snorkel quarterbacks are going to be different. You might have a scuba quarterback that's a snorkel quarterback for me. And it's like, so we're just going to talk about the section of players and we'll describe them. And I'll start with scuba first. And scuba quarterbacks for me, Jarrett Stidham, Dwayne Haskins. Now we'll see. I understand there's some like Steelers fans that think maybe Haskins could be the guy. It's like, well, we'll have to see that work ethic improve and bump up, but maybe a fresh start is exactly what he needed. Certainly, I would love if Mason Rudolph was not the Steelers quarterback or the egghead Josh Dobbs. That's one's for my sister Carrie, who's sitting here and watching us on Facebook. Jarrett Stidham, of course, will watch the Cam Newton situation, saying that he'd come back for a year. They might draft Mac Jones in the first round, which would make a lot of sense. Stidham just doesn't seem like their guy as a starter, but snorkel surface level guys, Bloom, that's where I'm starting with quarterbacks.
Yeah, and this makes me want to do a news and note show with Yasis to talk about Ben Roethlisberger and all that good stuff. So got to be thorough here. My snorkel level guys, Jordan Love, just make sure. Jameis Winston. And I think if we were setting up odds right now of who the starting quarterback will be for the Saints in Week 1, Winston's the favorite. And we saw what he could do in Tampa. He's in a good system. I mean, Haskins. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. But there's the Steelers' way, right? They're going to keep Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph is the guy that only because he's Cease, if you and I talked a few weeks ago, we'd say 90% Roethlisberger's coming back. Because we're still talking about this, it's like 50%.
He's got no allies either.
Yeah. So and they like Rudolph. They're going to give Rudolph a chance. Now that's why Haskins becomes interesting.
So dumb. That's so dumb.
Well, they have a fascinating. He's handsome, Cecil. They like handsome quarterbacks, I guess. I don't know, but then they like Ben Roethlisberger. Marcus Mariota. Again, news and notes. New England. If you ask me to handicap who's going to start for New England, I think the two most likely guys. I mean, Stidham. We'll get to him. He's a little lower for me. Cam Newton, who said that Belichick is dope as hell, and said he'd absolutely come back and play for him another year. I love that Brandon Marshall's doing a show now, by the way. Really getting players to open up. I think Mariota makes a lot of sense for the Patriots. And I got to mention Taylor Heineke, who got that job. Yeah. Again, if we're handicapping who's most likely to start for Washington week 1, I think he's the front runner. And hey, in hindsight, what he did against Tampa Bay's defense in the playoffs looks pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Heineke for me was a scuba quarterback. And again, overlap, whatever. But it's interesting to talk about these players because Heineke at Old Dominion, I always said if he was like 6'4" instead of 6'1", he easily would have been drafted. Easily. And would have been an interesting prospect. But, you know, again, scouts, when he came out, like, oh, you're a short quarterback. Oh, we're going to look down on you. Nah, he's a good quarterback. He's a smart quarterback, tough quarterback. Trace McSorley is a scuba. It's probably should be a little bit lower, and I'll talk about Tyler Huntley in a little bit in submarines. But scuba for me was those two guys. Like Trace McSorley, just give me a runner, you know, not developed as a passer, but can you make plays and as a fantasy asset? If you can run, that's going to do a lot of good for you. So, yeah, Taylor Heineke, one of my favorites for a long time on this show. And then I'll throw in some love for Trace McSorley for scuba guys.
Yeah, I had scuba. McSorley down in the submarine level. Scuba, and it's interesting because I write these up, by the way, if you're a Football Guy subscriber, weeks 13, 14, 15, and 16 of Buy Low Sell High are basically my stab at these players to stash away. Because, hey, once you're eliminated, it's bittersweet. See, right? You get eliminated from the playoffs or eliminated even from making the playoffs in your Dynasty League, but that means you can start to look forward. And so I start doing that in the season. So here's who was in the scuba at that time? Jacob Eason. Jacob Eason. Not a correct answer, at least maybe not for a couple of years. PJ Walker. Now, we know that the Panthers are really hot and heavy to get another quarterback. And I really think if Teddy Bridgewater, as much as I love him as the week 1 starter, we will see PJ Walker get a shot at some point. Another thing I should mention in the background, too, is for those of you in Superflex 2 quarterbacks dynasty leagues, maybe another level. Maybe we need to go back to Mariana Trench level because every quarterback that has even a whisper of a hope of starting eventually should be rostered in those leagues. PJ Walker has a chance to start at some point next year and maybe stick. Jacoby Brissett. And, Jacoby Brissett is another one that we should mention with New England. The word is that Belichick is interested in all the quarterbacks, but is slow playing the market and isn't going to overpay. Doesn't that sound like Jacoby Brissett?
That's exactly what they did last year when they got Cam Newton.
Right.
We're just going to wait around.
Sign Jacoby Brissett to some 1-year, $4 million deal with incentives or something like that. Brissett can run. Brissett is always going to be right around that top 32, never higher than the 25th best quarterback in the league, but competent enough that he'll continue to get shots to start and be one of the more reliable backups. So he should, again, the New England situation becomes interesting because somebody's got to start there, and at least New England fans probably are hoping it's not Jared Stidham.
Yeah, news notes or rumor show, Bloom, because in Submarine, I've got James Morgan right at the top. Anytime you have a cannon of an arm, now he can't throw it in the ocean standing on the beach. Let's not talk about accuracy, but just in terms of cannon of an arm, that got him a lot of attention. Saw him down at the Shrine game a couple of years ago, and of course, looked like one of those guys like, you want to pay attention to, just with that elite level arm strength. Again, really, really wild. And well, we'll see what happens with Sam Darnold, right? Oh, they're going to take it slow. And then, he's on the trade block. So you're hearing a lot of things. I think the season of lies, because there's no combine this year, has started early. So just get ready for that. Tyler Huntley, I like him more than Trace McSorley.
Yeah.
But just if I'm ranking these like submarine level guys, that would be Tyler Huntley. And when he was thrust into the lineup for the Ravens, he didn't look overwhelmed. What was that one play, Bloom? It was like a 3rd and long, and it was in his own end zone. and he made a play. Like Tyler Huntley's got an intriguing skill set again in that offense and that fit with the Ravens. It's very interesting. Speaking of fit, Cole McDonald. I think it wasn't that long ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, something like that, came across the news wire that he was signed to a futures deal with the Arizona Cardinals. So again, you think of that system, you think of the system that Cole McDonald played in college, and you're like, oh, spread it around, fire the ball all over the place. Sounds right. I'm going to keep an eye on that in super deep, crazy deep dynasty formats. Those are my submarine guys.
Yes, it gets fun, right? I mean, let's face it, Cease. Like, from the very beginning of the show, we like talking about players that we think nobody's heard of, but like 15 years later, everybody's probably heard of them. As much as we like talking about, the big important issues of the day. You mentioned Trace McSorley and Tyler Huntley. I think they both qualify. Let's just take a step back here, Cease, and say there's the Taysom Hill category, right? I mean, this is a copycat league. I think teams want to develop athletic quarterbacks to have some novelty plays to keep a defense off balance. But also, remember, Taysom Hill, the Tampa Bay Bucks defense had a lot of trouble with Taysom Hill. So it's always good to have that extra card to play. It could be McSorley. Huntley is a terrific fit. And you know what I think about too is Tyrod Taylor, right? And Tyrod Taylor is actually a good snorkel level guy too, is someone much like Brissett, who will probably get another chance to start at some point. And not with the Lions, now that they got Jared Goff. So Anthony Lynn's not going to get him back. So Tyrod Taylor was someone who looked like he was a competent backup for the Ravens for a long time, and then got his shot. And then we have
literally got his shot under the ribs, which led Justin Herbert to come in.
I know. Well, and see, look, great transition, Cease. Easton Stick.
There you go.
Easton Stick, another one in the Taysom Hill mold. I also had James Morgan down. Now, I do think that if we were handicapping the Jets starter week 1, Zach Wilson, probably. Zach Wilson.
If they're smart, but are the Jets smart?
Well, that's true.
They're smart to get Robert Saleh. Saleh's smart.
And Joe Douglas is maybe smart. And I got to mention Josh Rosen. And it's like a joke, Cease. Like Josh Rosen and Dwayne Haskins walk into a bar. Everyone says, drinks are on you. So.
Right. Well, and Rosen sticking with Shanahan. Again, it's all about fit. And Kyle's not going to keep him around if he's a slappy. Again, just from what I heard from Dolphins team sources, guys that work in the building, is like Rosen works really hard.
Yeah.
He's just not as smart as he thinks he is.
Are any of us?
That's what I was told. Very true. But most of us don't go around acting like the smartest guy in the room, like Josh Rosen.
Right.
So there we go. Let's talk running backs and snorkel, scuba. I should combine a lot of this, but just in the snorkel section, there's Gus Edwards.
Yep.
Hanging around, doing his thing. Notice how we're talking about the Ravens offense a lot. But Gus said, I know J.K. Dobbins is going to be the cat's pajamas or cat's meow. Which one is it?
Both.
It's both of them?
Catbird seat.
He's both. All right. And he's in the driver's seat, in the catbird seat. But Gus Edwards is there. He's just kind of waiting for an opportunity, which could come at any time. Travion Williams, it's probably be a little bit lower, but that's my circle section. I've got really thick scuba and submarine sections, Bloom.
Yeah. So here comes lots of names. Okay. And just being thorough. Jamal Williams. I do think that he's more likely to come back to Green Bay than Aaron Jones, but who knows? Someone might give him a starting job. Gus Edwards mentioned. Check the waiver wire for Le'Veon Bell. I just think that he could be like a third string back that by December can be a competent player, kind of what we hoped LaShawn McCoy would do. How about LaShawn getting those rings? Kalen Ballage looked like the game was slowing down for him a little bit, and he was the number 2 back. Now it's a new regime with the Chargers, so who knows what they think of Ballage, but Lynn Bowden, who was a pretty good slot receiver. I have him under running backs because he was listed as a running back in a lot of systems. Now Miami's likely to draft another wide receiver, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bowden, his role grows. Looks like they did a good job picking him up. Anthony McFarland, Matt Canada, offensive coordinator now. Steelers aren't going to bring back James Conner. I don't know who's going to start at running back for the Steelers. I know that McFarland's going to get a little more of a chance to show what he can do. Darrington Evans, and just remember that the Titans had big plans for him. I don't know if he's really capable of fulfilling big plans, but he's somebody who's going to get a chance to show what he can do, at least in enough of a dose to think about a second contract. Don't forget about Rashad Penny. I don't know if the Seahawks are going to franchise Carson. I think that's the right move at $8 million. But
I thought they were going to let Carson go. Speaking of news and notes show.
Yeah, right. I know.
That was the word, like, they believe in pennies, so they're going to let Carson go. I'm like, really?
I know.
Good luck. No wonder Russell Wilson wants out of there.
Yeah, right. Lamichael Pirine, and some of these guys are just by default because we always pencil in, okay, this team's going to take a running back. Like last year, Miami's going to take a running back in the draft. Well, they didn't. Miami's going to sign someone in free agency. They did. Jordan Howard. They traded for Matt Breida. Both of those guys flamed out, and there's Myles Gaskin. So Lamichael Pirine is someone to keep in mind in that thought.
In Scuba thought, just like a Gus Edwards vein, and I always said it, Josh Adams is just like Gus Edwards, just like him, and he's produced, he's looked good at times, and now a restricted free agent with the Jets. I look at Samaje Perine, and so happy to talk about him, one of my motorboat rookies of the year, which usually dooms guys in the NFL. But Perine finally showed something with Cincinnati, so maybe there's something a little bit more there. Raquel Armstead in Jacksonville. We'll watch that situation. We'll see what Urban Meyer can do with that team, but he's a player to keep your eye on. Perhaps foolishly, Bloom, on both of these players. I'll get Darwin Thompson out of the way.
Yeah.
Foolishly, maybe there's something there, but Damian Williams will be back, so whatever. And then foolishly, I still think Royce Freeman's good. I still do. I watch him practice. I watch him run. He has no confidence. And maybe that's like Ryan Moats back in the day, Bloom, where it's just like, oh, well, you're really talented, but if you don't believe in yourself, it's not going to happen. That is for all of us out there in any walk of life. But I've got Royce Freeman still on the Scuba list. Might take another team. But as of right now, Gordon might be let go because of the DUI and the pending suspension. They can get rid of him with no dead money. Philip Lindsay is a restricted free agent. Just listen to our interview with him from 2 weeks ago, and it sounded like he was saying goodbye to Denver. Royce Freeman could be at the top of the depth chart in a blink of an eye, especially if the Broncos don't tender Philip Lindsay, which it's kind of teetering right now. So anyway, again, foolishly, I'll say Royce Freeman, but I still believe in that skill set.
That's okay. I mean, look, he's played enough that we have some evidence that he can't play, but he's still in the upslope side of his career arc, and it could be a question of system or
Thomas Jones,
Yeah,
Thomas
absolutely.
Jones took like 4 years to get going.
By the way, our man Jacobo Moses brings up Wayne Gallman, and I mean, he's competent, and then I think that's someone that could get some sort of opportunity. That's a good one. We're gonna go deep. Scuba. Dante Foreman, remember he was back last year? Remember there was a couple of moments that he got a carry and he thought, is that Derrick Henry? That's not Derrick Henry's number. You never know. Eno Benjamin, now, whenever the running backs went down for the Cardinals, he was still a healthy scratch, but he's still on the roster, and I don't think Kenyon Drake's going to be back. Ito Smith, by the end of the year, Ito Smith was the best running back on the Falcons roster. Now, again, the Falcons are going to draft a running back. The Falcons are going to sign Leonard Fournette or whatever. Okay, but Miami is an example of teams can have a plan at running back, and that guy who's the holdover, who's just a good jack of all trades back, can end up being the most valuable back. Mike Boone, Harry Carey push that week 16. Look, there was word, part of what got us so excited going into week 16 was there was this word that teams had inquired with the Vikings about trading for him. And he's physically a wonder. He's a restricted free agent. We'll see what level tender he gets. JaMychal Hasty, I think we all thought he was going to get more opportunity. I think he's going to come in as the third string back behind Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, who can't stay healthy. Let's mention Salvin Ahmed again, who looked good at the end of the year when he got an opportunity. Another San Francisco undrafted free agent who Miami picked up. And Reggie Bonifant. Now remember, he looked good. He was the backup he could have been splitting that work with Mike Davis. They could have had a split, and then he got hurt. He showed some explosion. And I think that, there was a reminder this year, even though we weren't thinking much about the backup to Christian McCaffrey going into the year, every backup could have value. Mike Davis is a free agent. Bonifant could be the backup 2021.
Well, or Christian could get traded to Houston. Panthers are going to be a serious player.
Yes.
Four teams serious about Deshaun. Broncos are one. Panthers might be the most serious. I mean, if you dangle Christian McCaffrey out there, you're getting attention. So yeah, keep an eye on that. Gem City Gridiron in the chat room talking about Josh Kelly. Used to be on my list. It's one of those guys, Bloom, where it's like, man, I don't know. Okay.
This is confidence, the fumble. Once he was fumbling, he lost it. This is a secret news and note show. We're listing this as a Dynasty waiver wire show, but folks that are listening know this is actually a secret news and note show.
Submarine running backs for me. You mentioned, Benjamin. He's a sub guy for me. Again, foolishly, Bryce Love. It's just one of those like I saw it when you were a junior in college 5 years ago, maybe or sophomore in college. I think it might have been. Anyway, Levante Bellamy, message. Philip Lindsay might not be tendered. Levante Bellamy, team really likes him. Runs like Philip Lindsay. Looks like Philip Lindsay. Catches the ball maybe better than Philip Lindsay. And Divina Zigbo from Jacksonville. Just watching that situation. And don't you love when we go through these names, Bloom? It's like when you brought up Dante Foreman. And it just gives me a big smile. You say Dante Foreman, I just start smiling. It's just so much fun. Same reaction from you for one Nebraska Cornhusker Divina Zigbo.
Well, it just comes back to why we love draft scouting, why we love fantasy football, because the desire to learn as much as we can about these players adds so much depth and meaning to everything that happens on the field or every roster move. And bringing up Levante Bellamy is a good one because I think, folks, as we get into first franchise tag day today, right? We're in the calendar, Cease. We're in the calendar.
Yep.
And then free agency and then the draft. We're going to have RFA tenders to look at, like we've mentioned already with a couple of players. And actions speak louder than words. So when we see those actions or lack of actions, we can start to deduce what these teams think about players. So, if Denver doesn't tender Lindsay at a level like a first round, second round level to protect him, that probably means they really like Levante Bellamy. Or, they still think that Royce Freeman can do something. So knowing these names is important, and then hopefully knowing their games. Going deep, Cease.
Yeah.
J.J. Taylor in New England. James White probably going back to Tampa, you think? Rejoining Tom Brady? He wants another ring, right?
Tommy loves him.
Yeah. So, I think J.J. Taylor could be an interesting guy as a scat back for them. Josh Adams. Look, every time Josh Adams gets a chance to play, he looks good. He's another one that if the Jets don't make a big move in running back, maybe it isn't LaMichael P. Ryan. Maybe it's Josh Adams. Or Pete Guerrero. Going on expanding to the 90-man rosters in the offseason. The speedster. And again, anytime a team has no long-term answer on the roster, so we're talking Atlanta, we're talking Miami, we're talking the Jets, on the roster, Denver, we're interested in every one of the running backs.
Yes.
We're interested in everyone. And Tyson Williams, been a while since I said this, he's a Matt Waldman favorite. And could easily make the team, I think, as the third string running back in Baltimore and see where he goes from there. But if he's a Matt Waldman favorite, he's going to get mentioned in this show.
Yes, and he needs to be on your list. To the wide receiver position we go, and the snorkel guys for me, Braxton Berrios with the Jets. Chase was tweeting out some interesting things, which I could pull up right now, Bloom, but I'm just too lazy. But anyway, so some interesting things about Berrios, and I think it was after like week 8 or whatever, he accounted for 36% of their passing game. Right. And Chase is like, I don't know what to think about this, but here's what Braxton Berrios did. Okay. Paris Campbell. Yeah.
Trade for Paris Campbell, folks. Go make an offer right now. Pause this show and go make a dynasty offer for Paris Campbell right now.
Do it. Geronimo Allison. You're looking at a situation where Galladay's going to get tagged. Most likely. Marvin Jones Jr. is gone. Dammy Amendola is gone. There's Geronimo Allison doing his thing. And Tyler Johnson with Tampa, Super Bowl champion. So anyway, those are my scuba guys, or my snorkel guys, Bloom. How about you?
Yeah, speaking of the tag, Godwin's going to get the tag, if not a contract, to block Tyler Johnson, but he would be an excellent slot in that Bruce Arians system. And Galladay tag and trade?
Maybe.
They want him to be a long-term piece. I don't know. I'm not. I just know that I feel like Kenny Galladay with Jared Goff is going to be really sad for people who have Kenny Galladay. Anyway, all right. Devin Duvernay was mentioned in the chat room already by Andrew.
Right.
Willie Snead's probably gone in free agency, and Duvernay has that speed. Auden Tate, AJ Green. I saw someone putting AJ Green on New England, and part of me just said, yeah, actually, that kind of makes sense. Auden Tate can take over that AJ Green role in that offense. Speaking of Cincinnati, John Ross. John Ross is one of the fastest, quickest players in the league, enough so that you might even tolerate his lapses if he could stay on the field. So just holding out hope one more time within Donovan Peoples-Jones, instant impact for Cleveland late in the year. Colin Johnson. So, Colin Johnson, Donovan Peoples-Jones, these are players at different points as we're getting into draft season. At different points in their history, they were highly, highly regarded prospects. Not as much at the time they came into the league. So for those of you that love draft pedigree as an indicator, the draft pedigree indicator for Colin Johnson and Donovan Peoples-Jones isn't great. But there are other indicators that say these guys have a high ceiling. And with Colin Johnson, let's remember, this is going to be an entirely different Jaguars offense with a lot more potential for production. So if they don't bring back Allen Robinson, if they don't draft someone high to be the number 3 receiver, Colin Johnson looked pretty good last year. Bryan Edwards, let's not forget about him. He was the cat's meow, the toast of the town during training camp last year. Not much came of it. I don't think the Raiders are going to pay Nelson Aguilar what the market demands. They might. I think that opens up opportunity for Bryan Edwards. And Tyron Johnson. These are long lists. Tyron Johnson was fantastic down the stretch.
Yeah. Very
much a player. Now, of course, it took Keenan Allen being hurt for him to really get the targets.
But Mike Williams is going to be gone. News and notes.
So, Quintez Cephas, just double check. He, as of right now, unless they bring back Kenny Golladay, Quintez Cephas is like the incumbent number 1 receiver. Josh Reynolds could get a big opportunity somewhere else, maybe in Detroit. Traquan Smith, don't forget about him. He looks like on a second contract, he's going to look good. Don't forget about Travis Fulgham, who I think they say his work ethic, practice habits and stuff dropped off, and that's part of why he dropped off, but still could figure into this team's future. So, there's some like post-hype guys like Smith and Fulgham to take a look at.
By the way, Jacobo's asking about Van Jefferson. Snorkel. Oh, yeah, sounds about right.
Hey, at least he's got Matthew Stafford now.
Yeah, sounds about right. All right, to the scuba section of wide receivers, going a little deeper. I have Lynn Bowden in this section, so much of the same reasons of what you said, Bloom. I have Isaiah Coulter here. I have Quez Watkins here. Give me some of that speed. Juwan Johnson, if you want some size. I should add Traquan in the snorkel section, but he's disappointed me for years. But Juwan Johnson, big body. Keyshawn Johnson, Arizona. Maybe he gets something figured out there with his own large body. And then I know this one will make you smile. Penny Hart.
Yeah,
Penny Hart, man. Yeah, makes you
hanging
smile.
around.
Yep.
Hanging around.
Yep.
He may have a better career than Andy Isabella yet.
Or our man, Darius Fountain.
Reese Fountain. He was the last time he got hurt, he was really about to break out. Lots of overlap here and a lot of names. Wide receiver is one of the ones where I guarantee you there's going to be some of these names on your waiver wire just because some of them are obscure or some of them are just overlooked. Isaiah Coulter is another one. Brandon Cooks do $12 million. Probably they'll keep him. Will Fuller coming back on the tag or probably at least one of them is going to come back. If both of them don't come back, if both of them are on the Texans roster, Isaiah Coulter becomes interesting. I want to move this guy up to, I have him listed as Scuba from back in December, but I think he is a Snorkel and maybe one that you should go check right now too. Byron Pringle. Byron Pringle. Sammy Watkins, free agent. Demarcus Robinson, free agent. Mecole Hardman.
Can't trust him.
Can't trust it. So Byron Pringle's got some game. Cedric Wilson, he's got some game. The number 4 receiver, but injuries happen. We're just going to exhaust the whole list of the Saints receivers. Did we mention little Jordan Humphrey yet? I didn't know. Marquez Callaway, he looked good. And he was, I think, about to become entrenched in that offense when he got hurt. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him come into this year with a lot bigger role. You mentioned Tyler Johnson. And the only reason Tyler Johnson isn't higher on my list is just I feel like it's a foregone conclusion that Godwin's going to get a long-term deal one way or the other. Cam Sims, and again, you love to look at the pedigree, right? Oh, undrafted free agent. Well, he was playing at Alabama. A lot of players that can play and play well in the NFL get lost in the shuffle at Alabama. He's got some game, and for a long receiver, He has a little bit of run after catch skills. And again, with Washington, who are we looking at other than Terry McLaurin? Scott Miller. Now, this one's really interesting. Is Antonio Brown going to be back with Tampa next year? Is Antonio Brown part of the offense? I don't know. I think that I think they're actually a better offense with Scott Miller on the field than Antonio Brown. And Tom Brady likes Antonio Brown. He lived with him and all that, but Tom Brady sure likes Scott Miller too. And he's the deep threat. I know Mike Evans can make plays downfield, but Miller is the deep threat. He's the new John Brown for Bruce Arians. Got Washington one more Antonio Gandy Golden. Long-term project.
Yeah.
High ceiling opportunity. And we'll see who the quarterback is there.
Yeah, just look at some of these big-bodied receivers as we go to the submarine section, and this one's really fun for me because Jaleel Scott kicks things off now with the Jets. But again, big body, just keep an eye. Speaking of big body, former tight end and CFL, top of my head, Duke Williams with Buffalo. Like when he's gotten onto the field, like he's looked good. So, we'll see what happens there. Derek Willis with Cleveland now. KJ Hill, if you want some run after the catch with the Chargers. Khalil Tate, Philadelphia, now playing wide receiver, no longer a quarterback. Aaron Fuller, just because if you listen to our Shrine Game show last year, not only did we talk about James Robinson, but I think I spent a lot of time talking about Aaron Fuller. He's with Seattle. And then finally, Bloom, from CU to Denver to Green Bay, it's Juwan Winfrey. Kid's got skills. He always did. Now he's got to stay healthy. But Juwan Winfrey, seen it with my own eyes, Bloom. There's something there. If the stars ever align right, could be a nice favorite there for Mr. Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and by the way, I forgot one running back that I did not mention. Antonio Williams. I got to get him in there because of Week 17 and because Buffalo doesn't have much at running back. I got to be exhaustive here. Submarine, fun. You mentioned big body receivers. Desmond Patman and Ashton Doolin in Indianapolis. And now with Carson Wentz, those guys that can go win those 50-50 balls, the size, speed prospects become more interesting. Olamide Zaccheaus. Love saying that. He showed some speed last year. We know he's a Hoover. He can catch everything. And we'll see. Russell Gage had an excellent breakout year of sorts, but Zaccheaus is a guy that could figure maybe into the long-term plans. Giants have a couple interesting guys. Golden Tate's going to be gone. Austin Mack, who made some plays when he got on the field. And how about Dante Pettis? Dante Pettis, he had the falling out with Kyle Shanahan. I think that Kyle Shanahan wanted him to toughen up as a player.
Right.
And that's just not Dante Pettis' game. But that doesn't mean that what we saw early in his career, his ability to separate, his ability to run routes, that didn't just evaporate. So Dante Pettis is a guy who could work his way back into consideration. Jamarcus Bradley, you mentioned Willies. Jamarcus Bradley looked like a pretty good 50-50 ball catcher when he got on the field. He's got some Raging Cajuns, baby. Penny Hart, I had some, in my heart, Penny is like, not just snorkel. He's laying on the beach, bikini body, but it's Seattle. So opportunity. And then this is going to be, like 5 years from now, I'm still going to be saying, just keep an eye on Richie James. Remember what he did during that horrible COVID game? 100 and whatever yards, making plays. I still think it's funny. Richie James and Dante Pettis came in the same year, and I said Richie James is going to be as good as Dante Pettis, and I was right, but I still don't feel really good about it.
Final one. I have to throw this submarine one in. Maybe not because of my personal opinion, Bloom, but just because of, let's just say, some information I've been told.
Ooh, news notes.
Tyree Cleveland.
Oh yeah,
this team loves Tyree Cleveland. And to his credit, like Cleveland went from like a special teams guy to making plays as a receiver. Again, practice was limited and training camp was limited. But the times I saw him, there were some things to like. I had, written him off when they drafted him like, he's a special teams guy. Nobody get too excited. I've been told that your excitement should be ramped up. So anyway, tight end position. We have Snorkel, Scuba, Submarine left for these guys. So my Snorkel guys, you're going to know them. David Njoku. See what he can do, change of scenery, whatever needed there. Foster Moreau's a good tight end. He
He's
is.
so good.
He is. He's just behind Darren Waller, who's a stud and the best tight end in the league. Darren Waller, best tight end in the league. I mean, it's not outlandish at all. So Foster Moreau, always going to have some love there. And I'll throw in some love for Blake Jarwin here in the snorkel section.
Oh, yeah. And this is good. Like the tight ends. And this is always my favorite section of the Snorka. So yeah, there I go. Snorkel scuba submarine. I think we invented a tongue twister, Cease. Of all the things we've accomplished with this show, we invented a legitimate tongue twister. How many people can say that?
Yes.
Try to say it 5 times fast. A lot of these players that you want to make sure they're not overlooked. Dawson Knox. He started to come on at the end of the year as a touchdown scorer. He's hyper athletic. He's attached to a pass first offense. Also, John Brown. Oh, I love John Brown. Not going to be back with Buffalo. So there's Gabriel Davis isn't on any waiver wires, right? Just in case. They still have Isaiah Hodgins too. David Njoku, just for him to get traded. You know, I think it may be that he's one of those guys that has all of the athletic measurables you want, but still can't play. But you never know. On that same team, Harrison Bryant is one to keep in mind. He looked like he's got a good future. Another Matt Waldman favorite. Oh, Mo Alley Cox. Well, the good news is Carson Wentz is there. Carson Wentz loves throwing to the tight end. Mo Alley Cox, I'm just not sure that he can stay healthy. If he can, oh my. I mean, just physically, you do not want to see Mo Alley Cox coming at you in the open field. Josh Walker, if he could just stay on the field, was a pure receiving tight end out of San Jose State. Took him in the 3rd round. Can't stay on the field, but this is a Jaguars offense that we're excited to have pieces in now.
Yes.
So you got to mention him. Donald Parham, XFL. Hunter Henry, if he is retained by the Chargers on a franchise tag, it's the second tag. His price is going to go up to $13 million. They may sign a long-term deal, but I think if we're handicapping this, it's at least 30-40% chance that Henry's not with the team next year. Donald Parham moves right into the number 1 receiving tight end, and he looked good. He didn't look like Leonard Pope. Just because you're tall and you can run fast in a straight line at tight end doesn't mean you can play. But Donald Parham looked like he could play. Absolutely, I think that we need to look at him. Adam Troutman. This one maybe is low-hanging fruit. Jared Cook's going to be gone. The team loves Adam Troutman. Love him. Love him. Blake Jarwin. Gerald Everett. Okay, so this is one of the fun things about free agency. Whoever signs Gerald Everett is going to be the team that wants him the most, right? The team that has the biggest plans for him. Gerald Everett hasn't been a bust. He was the first pick of the McVay regime. He's a 2nd-round pick, another pure receiving tight end. And wherever he lands, I'm very interested to see what he does. Just check that Tyler Higbee wasn't dropped in your shallow leagues because Gerald Everett's probably not coming back. And they have Bryson Hopkins, but we know that Tyler Higbee can play. Absolutely. So lots and lots of tight ends for you to look at. See, and this was last year. What was the story at tight end? Like, you had Kelsey or Kittle for half the year, or Waller, or you were crying. And how many different names do you think started at tight end in a fantasy league last year? 40? 45?
Yeah.
So, even if you can excavate the number 15 tight end, that can really help your fantasy team.
Yes, and that's why these names are important. By the way, Jonnu Smith staying with the Titans?
No, I don't think so. Anthony Ferks. I'm skipping. Spoiler alert.
Oh, skipping ahead. Scuba time for me. Let me see here. Caden Smith. They're going to get rid of Evan Ingram, right? They're going to get rid of Evan Ingram. That's going to happen. Kahali Waring probably should be a submarine guy, but whatever. There, and who the hell knows with Houston? Anything, ever. Oh my God, Jack Easterby. Are you kidding me, Houston? Seriously. Durham Smythe, also down there. It's not just Mike Gesicki. So yeah, that's my scuba section, Bloom.
This is a long list. Believe it or not, tight end's my longest list. But I think what it reflects is that the bar for fantasy relevance in tight end is so low that it doesn't take much for a player to go from obscurity to someone that we think about starting in fantasy leagues. So let's run it down. Chris Herndon. Let me tell you a story. A player that we were all disappointed in was coached by Adam Gase, and then Adam Gase left that team. And then that player ended up being good. It's happened a lot. Chris Herndon could be next. CJ Uzoma could be a cap cut, could be the starter in a Joe Burrow offense. Looked like he was starting to break out whenever he tore his Achilles. Got to mention Albert Okwuegbunam. See, it's been a while. I got to do my limbering.
Okwuegbunam.
I didn't do my cheek limbering exercises.
No G. Okwuegbunam.
Oh, is that going to be like Silent G? Remember Chris Obanaya? It was a great.
By the way, as long as Drew Lock's the quarterback, which.
Ugh, yeah, maybe.
But even if he's not, I mean, you should. If you're Deshaun Watson, you should love Okwuegbunam as well. He's larger and faster than Noah Fant.
Yeah. I mentioned you mentioned Waring. That's a good one. Jordan Akins, maybe get one more chance. I don't know. Foster Moreau, and look, Foster Moreau really is Snorkel. He's going to start and he's going to be good at some point. And let me do a quick little tangent here. How deep are the rosters in your Dynasty League? If your rosters are deep enough that you can have 3, 4, 5 spots that you dedicate to someone that you know you're going to have to hold for 2 or 3 years, but you can allow, like, if you have churn at the end of your roster, someone like Foster Moreau, by week 3 or 4, you might release because, it's a fat waiver wire if they're short benches. If you have deep benches and you can afford to stash Foster Moreau, he's maybe the number 1 priority on this list. Likewise with Blake Jarwin. New England, you got Dalton Keene, former Liam Lammey teammate, and Devin Asiasi. We'll see what happens with that situation. Anthony Ferkser, he's an RFA, but he's the only tight end as of this moment that's coming back for the Titans. And if Corey Davis is gone, that becomes very interesting. So maybe Ferkser is someone that should have more opportunity. Dan Arnold's going to be a free agent. Are we moving on from Jay Sternberger now that Big Bob has done his thing? Was Big Bob Tonyan ever on one of these shows? I hope he was. I sure do hope he was.
Maybe. I mean, we're talking submarine.
I'll have to go back and look. Like when you're doing your submarine guys. And I do want to mention this. I should have mentioned this with Snorkel. Just check and see if OJ Howard's out there, or maybe even put out an offer for him, because he was actually the number 1 receiving tight end before he got hurt. And I think that Tom Brady was going to be very good for him. We'll see if he can get all of what he had back after that Achilles. But names upon names upon names, a tight end.
Yes, submarine names include both of the Patriots. Dalton Keene lives right down the road here in Trailmark. Devin Asiasi, as you mentioned with the Patriots. Always going to show love for Jordan Thomas, dude. Always going to show love. Now with the Colts, just keep an eye on that converted wide receiver, and he's freaking huge, 6'8". So Jordan Thomas, and we've seen him make plays. So, again, with the Colts, we'll see how that turns out. And then it's interesting that we're talking Colts and Eagles here, Bloom. Hakeem Butler got made into a tight end.
Oh, yeah.
So submarine, Hakeem Butler, it sounds like a perfect recipe.
So indeed, Cease, Tonyan was in the 2019, the end of the 2018 season, 2019. I had him as a scuba. And the write-up was, Jimmy Graham has been a massive letdown. The door's open for Tonyan to become a bigger part of the passing game. Matt Waldman sees something in him. Of course, also Rico Gathers was on this list. So, if you mention something that you did that you're thumping your chest about, you got to mention something that, well, maybe we were a little bit off on that. Submarine, you mentioned Durham Smythe, Adam Shaheen. You mentioned Caden Smith. That's a good one. Hunter Bryant. There's just opportunity upon opportunity with the Lions passing game right now. Hunter Bryant was an undrafted free agent that most of us thought were going to get drafted. Another pure receiving tight end. I mean, he's not Jordan Reed. He's not really in the Jordan Reed stratosphere as far as his ceiling, but can play that kind of role in an offense. So keep an eye on him. Can we just say all Seattle tight ends? Will Dissly, well, I mean, he's the one we know that can play.
Right.
Jacob Hollister, who may or may not come back, can be a free agent. And Colby Parkinson, hey, Stanford tight end, and they like Colby Parkinson. So somebody maybe could emerge a tight end for Seattle, unless they do something like bring in Tyler Eifert or something.
Or something. Some junk.
Some old guy,
Bloom, it feels good to run down these names. Feels good to kind of, remember why we love these guys, and just if someone catches your eye, we didn't have any preseason. That's a weird thing. Like, there's a lot of the times it's like preseason watch list guys and guys that we see in some fourth game against Arizona, that makes you kind of more interested. Mm-hmm. So with no preseason, and well, this is what we got. So we did it, buddy. We're back.
Yeah, we are back. And I think one of the fun things about a show like this is when you're watching football with all your friends, and especially in December, and someone catches a touchdown, and even on ESPN or NFL Network, they'll say, Donald Parham, who, and it's like, oh, well, let me tell you about him. He's 6'8", from
Right.
Stetson. He can run. He's playing the XFL.
Right.
And it adds depth to everything that happens. Every player's story is fantastic. We're in draft season, learning these players' stories, learning their strengths and weaknesses, learning how they can help a team. And then it just plants this seed in your mind so that later on down the line, you can separate the players who are just warm bodies at the end of the year from the players who've been hungry and training and just waiting for that shot. See, I really think one of the things that we don't understand from the outside looking in is just how dedicated some players that aren't even on a roster and maybe haven't been on a roster for a year, like Lance Moore or someone like that, or Andrew Hawkins. You know, there are players out there that aren't even on a roster that are putting everything they have, mind, body, heart, soul, into making it in the NFL. And in some ways, it's just a respect for these guys for us to learn these rosters down to the end. So when and if they get their shot, we'll be ready to break it down.
Well, I think what we're highlighting as well, the line between making it and not making it is so razor thin.
Yeah.
I mean, there is an alternate universe where Darius Fountain is like a household name. You know what I mean? Like, because that kid has a ton of talent.
Right.
And he just too banged up to ever do anything. So it's important to note, by the way, what would happen in that preseason game, it wouldn't be Donald Parham, who's that? It would be like, we're going to, do you see that new latest Disney Plus show? Like, I hate the preseason commentary because, you know, like you and me and our audience, we're like, we know these guys or want to know more about these guys. We want to see these guys play. And the announcers, God bless them. Some of them, dear friends of mine, they don't give a crap.
Yeah.
They're just like, it's the fourth quarter of the fourth preseason game.
Right.
Who gives a damn? We're going to talk about Disney Plus.
Did you hear about the new hot dog they got at the concession stand? 2 feet long, $25.
Yeah, there you go. By the way, I just got an alert about the Blue Beetle going in the DC in expanded universe. Okay. Hey, righteous. There you go. See, that's what they'd be talking about. You ever read Jupiter's Legacy? Anyway, he's Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. The show is at the Audible, and I'm at Cecil Lammey saying thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. Bloom, you'll have Jason Wood, part 2 of the coaching carousel.
Maybe coax a little Carson Wentz take out of him, too.
I don't think it would take much.
No.
That's for sure. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. I got to do my Sasha impression from Casually Comics. Make sure you do all those YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.